Hi, Brad. This is Nishant. I'm a host of Intensive Success Growth. This is today we have Brad. Brad is a host producer, and welcome to our guest, Brad. Brad, where were you? What happened? Who were you surrounded with that inspired you to do what you do today?
Well, it was an interesting thing because I was working at Garrett Deli, which is chocolate, and they make sundaes too at Disneyland. And random people kept on telling me when I was calling their order that I should start a podcast, but I didn't do it quite yet because I was like, well, I don't know how I'm going to do this. So fast forward a few years, and I'm in a coffee shop, and then people kept on telling me, like random people, hey, you should do this, you should do that. I'm like, okay, and then I figured out the name, which is Digital Coffee because I was at a coffee shop, so it almost sounded that. So talked to my friends. My friends inspired me to like go for it and inspired me to keep on going because sometimes it was kind of like, is this the right way I should be going? Like you never really know when you're doing something new. You're kind of like, am I good at this or not? So my friends would help me along saying, you're still doing good, keep on going type of a thing.
Okay. So your story is a little bit funny and very inspiring. So what are the top three reasons why do people fail?
Uh, in podcasting specifically, it's that people love podcasts, but the problem is that people understand the work that goes into it. So it's not, and you probably know by doing it yourself, it's not just you press record and then all of a sudden automatically it's done. You have to go through it, make sure that it sounds good, make sure the guest sounds good, and everything else that goes with it. So it's more, there's a term in the podcast industry called pod fade, which basically means is that you go for a little bit and then you stop, you just fall off and it's just done. So consistency is the key. That's one of the things that people fail at. Understanding what it entails to do a podcast and also understanding your own time commitment is probably the biggest three things that people don't understand.
Yeah, yeah. So what is your greatest failure story? What did you learn and how did you recover from it?
So I have broken my RSS feed 3 times since I started. So it's fine now, but when I was beginning, I was using WordPress, I was using FeedBurner, but Google stopped using FeedBurner, but now they're kind of going back into FeedBurner. It's a very long story, but
Okay.
I was using that and WordPress, like it's all of a sudden broke on me. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Like, and I went hours and hours into figuring out what to do. And then it happened again because I did something else wrong. And then it happened a few months later, third time. I'm like, okay. So I decided just to use a podcast hosting site like Anchor Radio, like Lipson, like one of those. And that, that helped me quite a bit. So the moral of the story was I use someone else's service so I don't have to deal with the back end issues that may arise if I do it myself and I break it. And I'm like, I don't know what to do now.
Yeah, it's like outsourcing.
Yeah.
Yes. So what are the top three success secrets that other can model from you?
I think for podcasting, it's just be yourself. I understand that a lot of times you may have to have a script, and that's fine. Just understand your own strengths and weakness when you're doing this. It's one of the main things. I can, as one of my own podcasts, I basically talk to myself about gaming. So I had to figure out how to keep on going, not have too many long pauses, and that led me to be a little bit more ad lib about what I do or what I talk about. So if you're not like that, then yeah, write basically something out that's kind of a script so you can figure out how to do it. Also for interviews like we're doing, figure out your own cadence, figure out your own speaker or the guest you're talking to, figure out like what is their expertise, and use open-ended questions because open-ended questions give you a bigger or better answer. If you do yes or no's will never give you a good answer, and it's a boring podcast and you'll have to restart over with doing it. And just it takes time. So you may be overnight in success, but usually it's going to take several years for you to be overnight in success. And it's okay to fail. It's okay to learn how to audio edit, how to video edit. What's the difference between a condenser or dynamic mic? Like all those things you have to figure out. And it's okay if you fail because you're going to do it. So if you fail and learn from it, then it's a win.
Yes. Well, motivates you within?
What motivates me the most, I think, is basically just that I'm trying to get better at whatever podcasting is. I'm trying to be the expert in podcasting. I'm trying to like understand what's going on in the podcasting world. And I just want to get better at it, understanding like frequency curves within microphones. Each one of them have a different curve to it that makes you sound good or bad. Not every microphone is the same. And all that other stuff, all those technical stuff that we don't really understand. That's what I really want to understand. But I actually bought a few courses on Udemy just to understand audio better. And then I was going through it. I'm like, oh, I understand all of this. All right. Well, I'm farther along than I thought I was. So always keep learning. That's what I say. Always keep learning because it'll help you in the long run.
Yes, right. So who is your ideal client?
My ideal client is someone that is willing to go in with this podcast journey, not in a quick, oh, let's just do this for a few months and see how it is, but like the long-term thing of like, let's go in for a few years. Let's see how well this works type of a thing. Let's also understand that I'm the expert. And even though I report to you, also understand that I have spent 7 years doing podcasting. So I understand what's going on in the industry, and I will help you to become the best you can sound within reason, because as always, as podcasters know, the best sound or the best way to sound the best is before post-production. Post-production is great, but you can sound really robotic if you add too many VSTs or plugins to have it. So basically a client that doesn't micromanage me, because it gets annoying if I have to get micromanaged, because I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I will hit your target or deadline as best I can. For the most part, the client that I have right now, I've never missed an episode. So I will hit that deadline no matter what.
So how do you find your ideal client?
Usually through, I'll try Upwork, LinkedIn, like all those other sites. I'll try to go to some networking events too, because podcasting is so popular and a lot of people are trying to get into it. It's a little bit easier to convince people to try to do it or try to be their client for you. That's another great thing. Also go into like Podcast Movement, which I'm looking to go into in August. I know they have one this month in LA, but I decided to do the bigger one in August, which is in Dallas. So go to like podcasting, networking, like specifically podcasting, because it's always good to network with other podcasters because they could help you and you could help them, and it could be a collaborative experience.
Okay. How do you engage your ideal client?
I usually gauge them like with mostly emails for the most part, but in the beginning, I like to do a face-to-face, try to show them the ropes of what we're going to try to do, try to give them the best options, probably give them, if they're just starting out, give them 4 of the microphones that I recommend, 4 mixers I recommend, 4 softwares I recommend. So about 4, so they have a high, mid, and then low or budget or whatever you want to call it to sound nice. But one of those things, so they understand like how much it takes to have a high quality podcast and how much it takes to have more of a budget friendly type of podcast. And then I'll go them through the process of like how it is, which podcasting hosting sites I recommend, also what entails to get on, let's say Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, because they're doing it, Spotify, what it entails to do that. Usually you have to have 1 episode up, and that's usually how it is to get on those things. And then to update them when we're going through it, update them through email about like, hey, this is going on. Hey, Facebook is now into podcasting. Look, YouTube and TikTok, which is I read today, is trying to get into podcasting. So at least update them on what's going on, because they need to know just as much as I need to know.
Why someone should buy from you?
Because I will give it to you the most authentic way possible. I will make sure if I can do it, I will say I'll do it. If I can't, then I will try to find somebody or give you a program that will do it that I can't do. So I understand my basically strengths. I understand my weaknesses. So I will try to minimize that as much as I can or find outside help if I need to. I will also give it to you straight and say like, this is what it is. This is how it works. And always try do my best to hit the deadline. I may be off maybe once or twice, but usually I'm always on my deadlines, because it's important for me to get the work done in the time frame that you want me to get the work done, and not try to like change the schedule, because podcasting consistency is key. So you want to hit that one day you're trying to upload your podcast.
Okay, you believe in under commitment, over deliver.
I believe in over delivering, because
Right.
if you under promise but over deliver, it's better, because they're like, oh, this is actually a lot better than I thought it would be. If you over promise and under deliver, they'll be very upset with you and be like, I thought you could do more for me. So you always want to just hit it a little bit under and then over deliver, so you
Yes.
surprise them instead of the other way around, because they will be very upset if you do not deliver what you exactly say.
Yes. How do you crush your competition?
Well, in a way, it's learning from them. So you could always learn from your competition. So if I can learn anything from them and then do it better than them, that's the way you crush your competition. Also, most people do hourly. I try to do monthly, because monthly just has a flat fee, and so everybody knows what they're getting. I don't have to like try to tally up all the hours and do all this stuff and like, are you working on this? It's more of just oh, you did all this for a month type of a thing, and they know what they're getting. And they always know what they're getting every month until we renegotiate or whatever. So I try to do it that way. For advertising my own podcast, I usually do like a low $200 a month budget for them, and that means everything. I'll do everything for them. So because I want advertisers, I don't not want. So giving flat fees, I feel like, is a lot better way and a lot easier for them to understand what they're getting out of it. So that's kind of like my process. I understand that we have all these monthly fees, and I'm trying to like be a little bit more of a flat fee instead of a month. Well, it's still monthly, but like not like this, like some months are higher, some months are lower. You just get a flat, you actually know what you're getting.
How do you handle rejections?
Well, I try to assess what I could do better. I try to ask someone that they may or may not give me the answer, but I'll ask what I could do better. If they don't, then I'll try to assess myself into figuring out what I can do better, because there is always, to a certain extent, you could always do something better, and also understand that there's so much in your control. Because I think we get a little bit into the weeds when we're like, I could have done this, I could do that. It was like, well, was that really in my control? Could I really control that whatsoever? And usually not. For example, during COVID, in the beginning of COVID, I had two people that were supposedly could be clients for me, but when COVID hit, they disappeared. And I'm like, well, that's understandable. Like, I can't fault you, because this was something unknown to us, since the last actual pandemic was the Spanish flu in like the early 1900s. So I understood that there was nothing I could do better, because it was just one of those fluke times where it's like, I can't really control the virus.
So, how do you handle angry client?
I try to, as I usually am, pretty even about it, be like, okay, let's go through this. What are you mad at me about? What can I do better? Kind of do again, what can I do better? What I did do great, what I could do better, and what I missed. And so if I missed anything, at least I know exactly, and then I'll correct it the best I can, because if you don't have the open dialogue, I'll never know if I missed something or not. So if a client's afraid to tell me what I did wrong, then I can never change, because if I don't know, if I'm unaware of what I did wrong, then that's it. Usually I haven't had any angry clients so far. So kudos to me for not actually having too many of those or any of those, but there always happens. There's always going to be disagreements. As long as you're calm and collective and not doing the social media thing of like hitting back and trying to like throw daggers at the other client, you usually will get it. But to a certain extent, sometimes you have to just get like, I can't do that. I told you I can't do that. I'm sorry if you misunderstood me. So sometimes it's a give and take. Sometimes you can't actually meet their expectations, and you just need to be open with that.
So how do you deliver 5-star client experience?
With doing the best of my ability, making sure I get it usually a day before it's supposed to go live. So if there's any edits I need to do, I can redo them. So I give a buffer time, because every client's different. Every client thinks that you could do a little bit more. If I can't do a little bit more, then I will let them know. I'll be like, okay, I'll look at it. And I'm like, look at it. I try to do this. It sounds garbly, even worse. It sounds robotic. I don't want to test this more than it already is. So this is what the best audio you can get out of right now. Next episode, let's look at what's the problems, and we'll fix it before post-production. Because like I said before, too many plugins, too many VSTs, they're also called, and you're going to get a robotic sound and it doesn't sound right, and you don't want that. That's the worst if they sound robotic.
How do you convert your client into your brand ambassador?
I mean, it's just basically delivering the best service. I mean, I may not be cheap, but I'll be quality and I'll be on time. So I rather, because you can only be two of the three things: cheap, good, or on time, or fast. For that one, you can only be two of those three. So I rather be the good and fast than the cheap, because cheap usually means that you're not as good. So if you're a little bit more high quality, so I try to be high quality, and so they can see my quality, and so they'll tell other people about what I do. So hopefully I can get more clients that way. But that's the best 5-star. Also, always update them with what's going on in the podcasting industry, so they're not like, why did I have to figure this out? Why didn't you tell me, type of a thing. So as long as you're ahead of that, your client will be happy because you're telling them what's going on in the podcasting industry.
What are you grateful for today?
I'm just grateful that I'm allowed to actually have a career in podcasting. Who would have thought that you actually could do this and actually make money off doing this? I mean, 20 years ago, it would just be radio, and I don't know how to get into radio, and that's a whole different ball game. But it's just nice that technology has caught up and that people have really, really liked podcasts, and it's just a good way for me to showcase like my creative side and everything. So I'm grateful that I could actually have a career in the podcasting industry.
How do you start your day?
I wake up, get a cup of coffee, walk my dog, and then feed my dog and take care of him, and eat some breakfast, maybe work out, and then I go straight into doing that. I maybe look at some news from Pod News, which is a podcasting site for podcasting news, and just see if there's anything interesting. If not, then I'll go straight into work, figure out what I need to do, figure out what I need to either write questions, edit an episode, or reply back to emails, and then throughout my day, and then relax after that, probably like 5 or 6 o'clock.
Okay. What is your plan to achieve your goal?
My plan is just to work more I'm already freelancing. I actually started during the pandemic, which is, people will be like, well, that's a weird time to start it. I was like, yeah, but I also didn't know it was going to happen. So just keep on going that. Hey, I survived through a pandemic with doing podcasts as a career, as a freelancer. So just keep that going. Just keep on pushing the pavement, pounding the pavement, making sure that my skills are top notch or the best I can actually make them for what I know right now. Keep learning, and then just grow the client base. I mean, it takes a few years just to grow your client base anyway. So you've got to be persistent. You got to believe in yourself to make sure that, freelancing just won't all of a sudden 50 clients will come to you at once. You got to build that rapport.
How will you feel in case you don't achieve your goal?
Well, I mean, things happen sometimes. Sometimes you just got to redirect yourself. Sometimes it happens. Maybe the podcasting industry just completely collapses, which I don't think will happen anytime soon, but things do happen. So you got to make sure that you don't have everything in one basket, all your eggs in one basket. So, I mean, I'm investing in stocks, investing in cryptocurrency. So I'm doing other things beside that, just so I'm not relying on one thing, and I'm actually secure in different ways, and just making sure that I invest in the right stocks, which is incredibly difficult right now because I don't know which stocks are actually going to be good anymore. But just being persistent and spreading it out, and making sure that I have a mostly diverse portfolio, but also diverse skill set, so I'm not caught off guard if something bad happens in the podcasting industry.
What advice you will give younger yourself?
Start podcasting a lot sooner than you did. Be one of the first ones to actually do it. Also, that just lean into your own skill set. Don't be so, I guess, afraid of failure, because I had some of that issues. Also, be okay with listening to your own voice in your podcast, because everybody hates that. If you're starting a podcast, let you know, everybody hates listening to themselves. You're not alone. It took me several years just to listen to myself. But that was telling yourself, just believe in yourself more. Just take chances, be risky, and understand that failure is part of the process.
Okay, good. So, what is your favorite book?
That was my favorite book. I would say that it is this is like an old school book, but it's from Roman Emperor. So I'm going way back, called Marcus Aurelius. He wrote basically a book called The Meditations, and it's basically about stoicism. So it's about controlling your emotions, basically only really taking control of what actually you can take control of, and just keeping calm during the storm, basically. Because a lot of times we're always raging about something. So sometimes it's good just to like keep yourself in control, keep yourself stable when things awry go happen, because they will go awry. You just, it's how you handle it that people remember you by.
Who is your living mentor? Like
Living
you,
mentor.
like who, like you inspired by them? Anyone?
I mean, I guess it would be, I mean, for a while it still is, like one of my old youth pastors. We actually look alike, so I always got accidentally called him a couple times. But he's always been that. He's always been there to help me out. He's always been there to kind of guide me through a lot of different things. So I mean, I haven't seen him for a while just because of, oh, everybody knows COVID and everything. But just one of those things where it's good to have like a good male role model, because as a guy, you always need someone to look up to, type of a thing.
What do you want to remember for?
I remember for just advancing the intellectual side of people, making people think, and having people open-minded to different ideas. You don't have to believe everything, but just listen to what people have to say and learn from it too, because you can learn from people you disagree with as much as you can learn from people you agree with, because the people you disagree with the most can basically either solidify your own ideology or philosophy, or it can make you change and pivot to a better, more stable path too. So I would say listen to both sides. Sometimes it's hard to do it these days, but always listen to both sides. Don't try to name call or just basically like virtually like maim them because you may not agree with them. That's not the way that we learn and grow together.
Yes. How can we support you?
You can support me either by, if you're into public relations, just go to PR360 and listen to that. If you're into PC gaming, Digital Coffee, I may actually start another one about technology or consumer tech, but I haven't gotten really into that. Also, if you want to actually financially, you could do it through buymeacoffee.com. My tag is Deister, which is my last name, B. So you could do it that way if you like what I hear, and buy me a coffee, because I'm the coffee guy. I love coffee.
Okay. What would you like to say about guest experience?
As a interviewer, the guest experience as an interviewer,
Yes.
well, I mean, my thought process for that is that I always try to never put forth my ideas. It's all about the guest when I'm an interviewer. So whether I believe what they're saying or not, it doesn't matter. I will go whatever path they want to go to. And then at the end, people can listen to it. They agree, great. They disagree, great. But I will never, as an interviewer, especially on like what I'm doing, try to argue with you, because that's not how what podcasts are. Podcasts are a conversation. I want to keep it that way. And I usually, my structure is like a introductory or icebreaker question, and then I get deeper, and then I have like a fun question that makes them really think, and then their final thoughts. And that's how I structure my interviews.
Okay. So what is your final word?
My final thoughts. Well, I mean, just if you're looking to get into something that's a little new or frightening, just do it. I mean, you never know if you're going to be good at it or not unless you actually try. You may learn some things. You may actually be really good at it. Just try something new. If you feel like you're stuck somewhere, try something new. Try a different avenue. Try something that you never thought that you would actually have a career in. I started this and I didn't make any money at all. I made no money, and I kept on going, kept on trying to make my skills better. And that's how I got here, because I decided that this bet was a long-term bet. So there are short-term bets and there's long-term bets. So do some short-term bets, but also do some long-term bets. Make room for the future and make sure that you know who you are, and eventually everything will come along the way.
Yes, yes. So I learned a lot of things from you, like you are committed person, like you believe in long term, you are you do under commitment over deliver, and
Mhm.
you are a nice guy. I learned like the way of you see the life, that is amazing. So thanks Brett Dester for coming us so, and we are welcoming to you, and our team is also grateful to you. You join as a our podcast, so thanks for coming.